What is happening to our young people? They disrespect their elders, they disobey their parents, they ignore the laws, they riot in the streets, inflamed with wild notions. Their morals are decaying. What is to become of them? A quote from the Greek philosopher Plato, written 2,300 years ago. The conflict between the old and the young is timeless. Throughout the ages, we have consistently found ourselves entangled in the intricate web of generational dynamics. We are confronted with a phenomenon that has endured throughout all sorts of civilizations and societies: the tendency for generational judgment, to experience the disapproving gaze from those who came before us. Obviously, this isn't the case for everyone, but it's definitely there. But why does this generational divide persist? What are the underlying factors that contribute to this age-old phenomenon? What psychological, societal, and cultural forces are at play?
I had to come in on my day off and everything. And I didn't particularly appreciate these kids lolling around doing nothing, and here I am out there killing myself to keep a family going.
People are afraid. Put yourself into the headspace of a 50 to 60 year old. Think of all the life you've lived, all the change you've seen, some for the better and some for the worse. This is a lot to take in for someone's first and only run at this little game called life. Growing up in the 1970s was a vastly different experience compared to the world we inhabit today. For those who came of age during that era, the memories of their childhood and adolescence are often coloured by a sense of nostalgia for an earlier time. However, as the world has evolved and undergone profound changes in the decades since, many individuals from this generation may find themselves lost, grappling with a sense of fear and uncertainty about the future, primarily induced by the rapid pace of technological advancements. In the past, communication was largely conducted face-to-face or over the phone. Information was disseminated through traditional media outlets such as newspapers and television. Times today couldn't be any more different. We live in a hyper-connected digital age where information is readily accessible at our fingertips. An age where social media platforms dominate our daily lives. A time where it's not only just the evolution of technology that stands out. The 1970s was also a decade marked by social upheaval, with movements from civil rights, women's liberation, and environmental activism gaining momentum at fast rates. Again, a time of difference. However, even the societal norms and values of that era are again vastly different from those of today. For example, the controversial attitudes towards gender roles, sexuality, and diversity have undergone significant shifts over the past few decades. The struggle to adapt to these changes is understandable. It's easy to empathise with a generation of black sheep in a white sheep's world, a world that seems unfamiliar and alien. The world they once knew and understood, irrevocably transformed. When placing yourself into this sort of perspective, you begin to see the anger and judgment from the older generation dissolve into a hidden reality of fear and anxiety. Anxiety for what's to come. But the thing is, the hidden reality transcends time. The circle of fear lasts forever. Erich Homburger Erikson, an American psychoanalyst born on the 15th of June 1902. Erich was known for his theory on psychosocial development of human beings. He was actually the one who coined the phrase identity crisis. But that's beside the point. One of the most influential theories found in Erik Erikson's work was his theory of psychosocial development. Erikson proposed the idea that individuals go through 8 stages of development, all the way from infancy to our elderly stage of life. According to Erikson, each stage is characterized by a specific psychosocial conflict, a conflict that must be resolved. School age, industry versus inferiority, age 6 to 12 years. During this very early sort of stage, individuals begin to develop somewhat of a sense of industry, gifted with a chance to produce, which can in turn give them feelings of competence and structure. As they engage in school and other organised activities, a level of competition seeps in. It becomes a game to seek recognition for their efforts. Older adults who succeeded in this stage as kids may value hard work, diligence, and the ability to meet social expectations. As a consequence to this, they may judge younger generations if they notice that they may not have succeeded in this era, perceiving them as not working hard enough or not achieving similar levels of competence that they should have been able to obtain with just a little bit more effort. This judgment can stem from a belief that younger people lack the same drive, or maybe don't face the same challenges as his or her generation did. This obviously, in turn, leads to an ever-growing criticism, a jab at their work ethics and unearned achievements. Young adulthood, intimacy versus isolation, between the ages of 18 to 40. In young adulthood, what's the primary focus? It's most likely going to be something along the lines of forming intimate relationships, building careers, and basically just integrating into a more responsible way of life. During this stage, it's said that success will most likely lead to strong relationships, whilst failure will likely lead to loneliness and isolation. Older generations above this stage may judge younger people based on their relationship choices and career paths, especially if these differ significantly from traditional expectations. A couple examples of this could be delays in marriage, a less traditional outlook on relationships in general, or just choosing completely unconventional career paths. These things can be very easily picked points of criticism. Older adults might view these choices as irresponsible, a waste of time, or indicative of a lack of commitment. What they fail to realise is the different choices being made are due to completely different societal pressures and opportunities that younger people are faced with today. Middle adulthood, generativity versus stagnation, between the ages of 40 to 65. Middle-aged adults can be pretty set in stone. They're often focused on contributing to society and guiding the next generation. They may judge younger people based on their perceived contributions and societal involvement. If younger generations are seen as not engaging or contributing in ways that align with the older generation's values, they may be criticised as being lazy, self-centred, or disengaged. All this judgment stems from is the fact that priorities have shifted. They have moved from a more selfish point of view to a more hive-like mindset. In their early years, the priority was to make themselves into something. It was all about them, and so it should be. But as they get into the middle-aged sort of region, they see it less about them and more about society. And sometimes this outlook can be held against others, forgetting that they once were in that previous era. The older generation begins to desire seeing their values and societal contributions continued on by the next generation. Maturity, the final stage, ego integrity versus despair, ages 65 and onwards. In this stage, life can get bitter or sweet. Older adults reflect on their lives and legacy they are leaving behind. Those who feel a sense of fulfillment may view their life experiences as a benchmark, leading them to judge younger generations against these standards. They may criticise what they perceive as failures or shortcomings amongst the younger generation, often due to a lack of understanding about the changing social norms and conditions. Conversely, if older adults feel regret or despair about their own lives, they might project these feelings onto the younger generation, contributing to a more critical and less forgiving attitude. Again, the circle of judgment lasts forever. To sum it up, Erikson's stages of development help categorise exactly how society can sometimes morph us into pretty judgmental people. As people age, their successes and failures within each stage in life help influence how we perceive and judge younger generations. More often than not, the older generation's judgment often reflects a desire for the continuity of their values, a refusal in accepting societal changes that the younger generation just seem to embrace. This dynamic undeniably creates tension, a tension that's mostly rooted in misunderstanding rather than hatred. As we know, human memory is not a precise recording of events. It can be pretty foggy at times. It's actually constructed from various pieces of information. Our memories are often influenced by present emotions and perspectives. A good example of this could be our memories of past relationships. Depending on our feelings towards said person, our memories of them may be based on our initial perspective of them. The reason this coincides with this generational conflict is because memory bias contributes to how adults view young people today. Adults attempt to evaluate today's youth based on the memories of their own childhoods, which are stained by present-day attitudes and values, leading to a combination of memory bias and presentism, shaping the way in which older generations may view the younger ones. A study conducted by John Protzko and Jonathan W. Schooler aimed to investigate this exact phenomenon. They hypothesized that adults may use their current selves as a reference point to judge the behaviour and characteristics of today's youth, leading to a phenomenon known as presentism bias. In a series of studies involving 3,458 adults, the researchers found evidence supporting their hypothesis. They discovered that adults who scored higher on traits such as authoritarianism, literacy, and intelligence tended to judge younger people more harshly in the corresponding categories. For example, adults with higher levels of authoritarianism were more likely to perceive young people as less respectful of elders, while those who were more well-read believed that today's youth are less interested in reading. And then when it came to IQ, adults who scored higher on measures of intelligence were more likely to perceive young people as less smart. So although presentism and memory bias isn't solely responsible for the older generation's perception of young people, it definitely plays a role, shedding light on how adults' traits and memories influence their perceptions of young people, highlighting the complexity of generational judgments and the role of personal biases in shaping these perceptions. Bobby Duffy, the British social researcher, public opinion expert, and writer, also had a similar but much more intriguing take on this. In his book named The Generation Myth, Why When We're Born Matters Less Than You Think, Bobby Duffy challenges the commonly held beliefs about generational differences, arguing that the concept of distinct generational characteristics is largely a myth perpetuated by popular culture and media narratives. He makes sure to draw and hone in on the extensive research and data analysis done within this theory. Duffy demonstrates that individuals within the same generation can have vastly different experiences, values, and outlooks, emphasising the fact that generational labels, albeit are there, do not contribute as much as people realise. It's individual differences and socio-economic factors that really make the difference. Jennifer Deal's research, as cited in chapter 3 of the book, involved surveying individuals across the different generations about their desires in the workplace. The findings revealed that, fundamentally, millennials desire the same things as older generations. This suggests that desires in the workplaces are relatively consistent across generations, painting a picture of unity and like-mindedness between recent generations. We strive for just as much as the generation before us did. The chapter also discusses the controversial claim about generational differences in attention spans, particularly focusing on millennials and Gen Z. It highlights the lack of reliable evidence to support this claim and questions the validity of sources often cited. For example, it mentions the report by Microsoft Canada's Consumer Insights team, which refers to the Statistic Brain website, but does not provide actual data on generational attention spans. This analysis illustrates how some commonly held beliefs about generational differences may lack empirical support. To me, this is pretty hard to believe, but interesting nonetheless. Instead of the potentially dwindling attention spans being a generational thing, it could just be more of a time thing. We can see this connection, particularly among younger generations such as millennials and Gen Z. Look at the rise of digital technology and the constant bombardment of information from smartphones, social media, and games. But then look back in time a little bit. Throughout history, individuals have grappled with distractions and competing demands for their attention. In the past, it was newspapers, radio broadcasts, and outdoor advertising that was clamouring for the public's focus. With the advent of television, attention spans were reshaped as people became engrossed in visual storytelling and televised entertainment. Today, smartphones, social media platforms, and streaming services have emerged as the new distractions, but they may not fundamentally differ from their predecessors. It's possible that what we perceive as a decline is in fact a shift in the way people allocate their attention. Studies have shown that attention spans can vary depending on contextual factors such as task complexity, individual preferences, and levels of engagement. People may exhibit longer attention spans when participating in activities they find meaningful or enjoyable. This is obvious, while their attention spans may wane when confronted with boredom or disinterest. This again brings us back full circle to every previously stated point. An older generation, bitter to the change of an ever-changing world. Bitter but afraid of the ways in which kids these days allocate their time. An older generation with minds of biased memories, afraid to draw comparisons with the younger generation in their own unique ways. An older generation that may not have been subservient to the same vices, but still had vices nonetheless. Boundaries will forever be shifting, while new players will forever step in. We soon will be veterans in the game, climbing the staircase of life, reaching new heights of wisdom and knowledge, only for us to carry on the legacy of looking down on the steps behind us, sometimes forgetting that we once trod the exact same path.